Welcome to the Princess Power Hour, where we show you how to go from pauper to powerful by transforming your health, your wealth, and your relationships. Here's the princess of podcasting herself, Natalie Thomas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have an awesome show. We have Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, and we're going to be talking about freeing yourself from crazy-making relationships. And as she said to me before we jumped on, everybody's had one, at least one. So you need it, I need it, and somebody you know needs it. So here we go. Before we get started, as always, we talk about our lip color of the day. And this is Precious Topaz. And I love this color. It's got a little bit of sparkle in it. And my favorite thing is it is kiss proof. It is smudge proof. I can kiss my hand and show it to you. I can smudge my lips and show it to you. And my color stays there. It will stay on for 4 to 18 hours. I put on 3 very light coats in the morning. I seal it in with some gloss, which is the secret sauce. And then I might re-gloss throughout the day if I've eaten or something and my lips feel a little bit dry, but I don't have to recolor, which is so fun. You can look at our over 50 colors at www.lipstickkissesandlove.com, where you're there, pick out a color, pick out a gloss, and tell me what you think, because it's vegan. It's lead-free, it's wax-free, and a whole bunch of other awesome stuff. They don't use animals for testing. So welcome, Roberta. We're going to switch gears from lipstick, which, by the way, our colors look really similar. So thank you for joining us today. I'm excited. We're going to be talking about freeing yourself from crazy-making relationships. That's such an important topic.
It is. And many times people don't want to believe that they actually are in a crazy-making relationship, but they feel like they're in a crazy-making relationship. So we've got to kind of connect those dots to, yes, it is, and it's not your fault alone. So you have to wake up and smell the herbal tea, Natalie.
The herbal tea. Oh, I love it. Okay, well, let me take a minute and tell everybody about you. So as a relationship consultant, mediator, speaker, and author, Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, the relationship help doctor, provides urgent and ongoing care for relationships in crisis. Her mission is to help people stop tolerating abuse. Even the United States Marines has sought her help. Dr. Shaler focuses on helping the partners, exes, and adult children of the relentlessly difficult people she calls hijackals. She offers strategies for dealing with the constant uncertainty and jaw-dropping behaviors of toxic people. Author of 16 books, including Escaping the Hijackal Trap and Stop, That's Crazy Making, How to Stop Playing the Passive-Aggressive Game. She is the host of the weekly Relationship Help Show. So that's awesome. 16 books. You've got a lot to talk about, girl.
Oh, I have. I have been doing this for a long time. And, you know, for some people to write one book is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And for other people, writing just comes easily. So for me, if I think about it, I write about it.
Oh, good. I love that. Well, start by telling us, what's a hijackal? Let's define that.
Well, I'll tell you why I created the term, and then I'll tell you what it means. There are too many people, Natalie, who are going to the Google goddess and saying, my partner behaves like this, and then the Google goddess, who, remember, has no credentials, comes back and says, they're a narcissist, or they're a psychopath, or they're this or that. And those are clinical terms that you need to have a lot of training to diagnose. And you can't diagnose unless you are a professional who is working with the person they're going to diagnose. So I wanted to give people a non-clinical term for the traits and patterns and cycles. Because from a psychological point of view, and my PhD is in psychology, if you go into the DSM-5 or whatever, all you see is there are a bunch of traits, and narcissists have this collection, and sociopaths have that collection, and they're just different. But all hijackals drink from the same pool of traits.
Oh, okay.
So what a hijackal is, by my definition, is a person who hijacks a relationship for his or her own purposes, and then relentlessly, usually daily, scavenges it for power, status, and control.
Mm.
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels, and worse.
Well, I can tell you that unequivocally, I was married to one, and I stopped counting when 36 people had asked me if he was bipolar. And other people would ask me, is he on drugs? I had other questions, and my answer was always, I don't know, but something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I did dip into the Google Goddess one day. I was checking out another friend. That friend had described himself as a sociopath.
Yeah.
I thought I knew what it was, but I thought, I'm just going to double check. Maybe I'm not exactly right. And when I read the list of traits, I believed, and again, I knew that I can't label somebody, but all of a sudden it felt like everything in my life made sense.
Right. And that's what happens.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, now I get it. Because it was absolute crazy making. Our relationship, I felt like I was a mirror to him. He would stand and he would point at me and he would accuse me of these horrible things that I certainly didn't think that I was doing any of those, but I knew he was.
And just to pick up on that, it feels like you're a mirror. And the reason is because hijackals project everything they're afraid of is true about themselves onto their partners.
So that's normal.
So that's exactly what they do. You've got it exactly right, that they're going to say, you do this. And when they say that to you, you have to think, that person is telling me what they're thinking or feeling inside. Because they're telling me I have it, it's because they have it.
Wow. Now, can a relationship with a person like that be saved? Or do you just have to save yourself from a relationship like that?
Well, it depends. And I know that's not the most definitive answer, but it's not like pregnancy. There are different degrees of hijackalness.
Okay.
Some people have been raised by hijackals and therefore they're comfortable. They're maybe uncomfortably comfortable with being with a hijackal. So they're really hijackal bait. They were raised to be hijackal bait. And so they don't know any differently, so they will try very, very hard to make the relationship work. And then other people...
Yep. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm raising my hand. I'm guilty. I'm listening. I'm totally guilty. Keep going.
Well, we come by all this stuff organically. It happened to us when we were little. So don't be concerned that anything is wrong with any of you who are listening to this, because until you know this, you can't know it, right? And so if we've had a home where there have been hijackal behaviors from a parent, they become normalized to us. And we may even consciously say we hate those behaviors, but they're normalized within us before we had language. So that's what makes us into hijackal bait. Hijackals see us and go, oh, there's one that I can manipulate. And so they're attracted to us. So the answer to the question, can it be changed? Yes, but it's a bit like that old joke, how many psychotherapists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change.
Okay. Well, I can relate to once you've been in all of this crazy making. After I got out of my really horrific marriage, he had divorced me for another woman after having a baby with her on our 10th wedding anniversary. I, of course, started dating and got into I can't even call it a relationship. It was so brief, but I met somebody that I really liked, but he was very difficult, a little strange. I now realize a little narcissistic. He actually broke up we dated for about 6 weeks. And then once I let him kiss me, he broke up with me 10 times in 10 days. Okay. This man needed a lot of drama. He wanted to be the woman in the relationship. Oh, it was okay. But I want to admit to my error here. Okay. Because we all learn from our mistakes.
Hopefully.
And I want our audience to look out for this stuff. So he would break up with me for things like, we were having a conversation and somebody walked by outside of where we were, and I kind of turned my head following, and that made him mad, and he broke up with me. And his record was he broke up with me 3 times in one day. But another time we had gone to a dance together, and we had only danced with each other. But he was very mad at me after the dance because he said that I had not asked him to dance, which he had all these rules, but he hadn't identified to me what the rules were. So he was always upset because I had broken the rules. And I so thank God that God spared me from that person. He was a friend. I still care about him as a friend, but I'm really glad we didn't go into full romantic relationship mode, because I remember sitting in the car with him after, probably talking till 2 a.m. because he's upset at me. And I thought that it was the beginning of a relationship, and once we kind of learned those rules and everything, that was a normal thing for a new relationship. And now I understand, oh, no. That was a very sick relationship. It was not a healthy person. Give me your thoughts on that. What does somebody do to wake up and say, run?
So many thoughts on that, Natalie. First of all, a hijackal is never going to tell you the rules because they make up the rules to win in the moment. So no matter how many conversations you have about the rules, they'll change it the next time you do it and make you wrong anyway. So don't go looking for the rules.
Okay.
There aren't any. Remember, a hijackal is dedicated to creating uncertainty, ambiguity, and chaos. That's how they're going to keep power in the relationship. So if you did what he asked you to do, then you won't do that well enough. If you don't do what he asked you to do, then it will be you're wrong for not listening to what he wanted. You can't win because the number one thing for a hijackal, in order to feel in control of life, and they're extremely fragile, fearful people at the bottom line, is that they must win. So they'll lie. They'll do anything they need to do to win in the moment.
Well, this is fascinating because I remember very specifically with the former husband that I talked about. We had lived in the same house for years, and all of a sudden he woke up one morning and decided that he wanted the drapes in the bedroom opened a different way. Now, it had been one way for years. All of a sudden he changed his mind, and, on like the second day of mind changed, I didn't remember because of habits. And now, the interesting thing here, I know that you talked about being asked to work with the U.S. Marines to help the Marines. He was a former Marine. So I don't know if that's pertinent or not, but I know that they can have very set ways. But,
yeah, and it appeals to them because there's a hierarchy. That's why hijackals are drawn to places where they can get power over someone. So they'll subject themselves to boot camp and do things like that. But if they have a hijackal nature, it's going to come out. And the thing about a hijackal, too, is you get into a really difficult place because they paint a public picture of perfection. So out of the world, they look like this fabulous person. And then when you say something to somebody and you say, he treats me really badly, and they say, oh, no, he's a great guy. And there you are, like feeling, what, am I crazy? So it's really important to understand how they work. And that's why I have a free ebook called How to Spot a Hijackal. Because if you think you're with one, you need to find out.
I would agree that it's important. My current husband says to me, why did you stay with him for 10 years? Why did you put up with that behavior? Why did you? And for me, I felt like I had made marriage vows to God, not just to my husband. I believed with all my heart that God could change and fix things, and that God could sort of do this Saul of Tarsus awakening to my husband, and that he'd see, how great I was and how much I loved him, and things would turn around. And of course it didn't, and my husband, when we got married, he was an ordained minister. He wasn't a pastor of a church, but all our dates had been about ministry. And I just thought, we were going to serve the Lord together. 2 weeks after we got married, he pretty much literally walked away from God, quit going to church, would mock me when I went to church. I would walk home. I walked through the door. I wouldn't have done anything. He'd say, and it was the B word. I can't say it on iTunes. They'll kick me off. But my mouth would be open like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I didn't do anything.
Sure. And what you're talking about there is that I've had people that on their wedding night, the switch got turned. So there they are, this incredible soulmate being, saying, doing everything that you ever wanted. And once they get you, they just turn it off and go looking for a new supply. Because now you're not interesting. I got you, I brought you home to the nest, I plunked you down, I had a look at you, prodded you all over and said, I think I'll go get another one.
That almost makes me want to cry, but I can really relate to that. I mean, he and I had a long distance remote relationship. We talked on the phone 5-6 hours a night, and it was, very intense. And then once he moved in with me, which he didn't move in until 5 months after we got married because of the distance, he had some things to wrap up with business and stuff. He literally would spend 5 minutes a day with me. And it was such a dramatic difference. And I've heard stories of women that, one in particular, she was romanced by a very wealthy man. He took her on, he would pick her up in his helicopter and take her to fancy dinners in faraway places. And he beat her so bad on their wedding night, he broke both of her legs. And she had to be helicoptered to a hospital. And he stayed married to her for 1 year and 1 day and filed for divorce after she couldn't legally do anything about what he had done. So what makes a man do that to a woman? What drives a man to pursue a woman and then literally emotionally abandon her as soon as they're married?
Power.
Really?
Yeah, because a person who is fearful, let's just think about where all this happened to these people, just in the same way what happened to us. In the first 2 years of our lives, so much is being taken in through our senses about who we are, how we fit in the world, who likes us, what's likable, how we're safe in the world, who we can trust. We just take in so much. It's right there in the beginnings, the first very, very few years. And so a person who feels like they can't trust the world, or that they have to be a certain way to keep somebody else happy, will often become oppositional to that. And so these poor people who have these personality disorders, which is what hijackals fall into, they didn't have a chance, right? Mm-hmm. This was formed in their very early life. Now, we can understand that. We can have compassion for it, but let's not condone or enable it.
Yes.
Right? Okay. I think that's very sad. Will a hijackal come to me for help? Almost never do hijackals go to get help because they're perfect. Everything that they feel about themselves is telling them that they are perfect. Why? Because they're fearful and they are very fragile, and they couldn't even entertain the idea of being at fault for anything, or they would shatter. So they do this great strutting of the peacock feathers and put all the beauty up and all of that until you are like, oh, wow, I can't believe this creature wants me. And if you've had a background where you have become hijackal bait, you are just believing that you've died and gone to heaven. This person understands me. They get me. They want to talk to me for hours at deep levels. They're willing to share everything with me. And all that is like, come here, little girl. you know?
Yep.
And then when you get there, it's like, I've lost interest in you. Now, the control is that I'm going to try and make you do and make you be however I want you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you can bet your bottom dollar you're never going to be good enough because everything will be your fault.
He decided he didn't like my smile. He didn't like my laugh. And get this, he didn't like the way my arms hung by my side. Like, as if I could do something about any of those.
But you see how just giving voice to that, Natalie, do you see how a hijackal works? Like, you cannot do anything about that, but he will say he's entitled to his opinion about it and what attracts him or doesn't attract him. And he just wants you to know why he would ever not be attracted to you, because there are these three things. And the fact that you can do nothing about it, even better. because now it's really your fault.
I was laughing at something you said earlier, and I want everybody to know as we're talking about this, I hope it's hitting home for you and you're learning something. But for me on the inside, I really feel like I want to cry, not just for me and for what I went through, but the fact that these things go on and that these people are out there and hurt people. Okay. So you said that these types of people can do no wrong. So I've got two funny stories. They're kind of short, but he came to work one day. We worked together. And he announced that the truck had run a red light.
All by itself.
Uh-huh. Now, he didn't do it. The truck did it.
Yeah.
I was floored by that. Now, another one, we went, we rented one jet ski. I rode on the back. He's driving. He dumped us in the ocean twice. He told other people that I had dumped us. He was driving. But
they weren't there.
I could not believe that he could not take the responsibility for that. He'd turned funky into a wave and we flipped. It wasn't a big deal. But to him, couldn't take responsibility for it.
But that's the fragile nature. You see, even that tiny little thing, he couldn't be wrong.
And I 100% know that what you're saying is true. It took me a while to figure it out with this man, of course. You know, he had this charismatic, huge personality, and he was a smart man. And I thought he was a good man, obviously. And I'm curious about something I'm going to ask you in your experience with this. Are these usually shorter relationships before they win the woman? Can they hide it for a long period of time?
I have had people who have hidden it for a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
But really, usually not. The game is to get you. And once you're got, then it's to dismiss you. Not to get rid of you, but to demean you, to degrade you, to discount you, to dismiss you.
And there was a massive amount of that for sure. Now, our relationship, we got married in less than 3 months, and I've always considered that to be my major mistake.
Yeah, it is, because that's a hijackal heaven right there. What they want to do, they will do things like this, Natalie. They will say, oh, you know, I just saw your picture and I fell in love with it right on your profile. And I just knew we were meant to be together and we'll be together forever. And I know you feel that way too.
Oh, yep.
Right? And then they will do everything that would please you the most. Unexpected things, romantic things, fabulous things. And it's all like a very, very carefully constructed thing to get you to trust them, to get you to believe them, to get you over to their side, and to get you to the place where you wouldn't believe their bad behavior. And that's what takes so long, because they like good people, because good people are going to be compassionate and go the extra mile and give them the second chance. They're going to rationalize their behavior, and they're going to make excuses for them, and they're going to justify their behavior and defend them.
And I did all of those things. I absolutely did. And more than anything, what I've beaten myself up was rushing in. I had friends try to tell me not to rush in, try to tell me to slow down, didn't listen. And, you know, in this relationship that I'm in now, which is absolutely amazing, it is beyond amazing. I think we dated about 26 months before we got married, you know, and I had him around my friends. I had him around my pastors. I took a lot more time because I felt like the other was my mistake.
Okay, well, let me say two things, because I missed a piece to pick up. There is any profession that allows you to have power over people is going to be something that appeals to a hijackal. So think of clergy.
Oh.
They have power over people. Doctors, attorneys, you know, anywhere that people can have, in my field, where you can have power over someone. Like, I just met a woman and at a conference, and she was, of course, people talk to me about their hijackal stories, and she was telling me how she put the man through medical school, and the day he graduated, he divorced her.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I asked this question, Natalie. I said, what is he doing now? And she said, he's a child psychiatrist. Now, how frightening is that? To have power over what happens and is said about young people and have his word believed. He could mold lives in whatever fashion he wanted. Absolutely frightening. Absolutely.
Wow. That is scary. I have noticed over the years, I've dealt with a lot of social workers, and I was a foster parent for many years, 9 years, and took care of 17 foster children over that time.
Right.
I found that a lot of people that go into that profession started out really messed up, and they went and took that type of education to sort of try to figure out things to unmess up themselves. And that's kind of what pulled them in that direction. Is that something you've noticed as well?
I think all people in the helping professions have probably had something that happened to them that caused them to either seek help or want help, or that they see a great need and they believe that they have something that they can do to help. But yes, and I meet it all the time. People come to me, and I have clients all over the world because I work by video conferencing, and they'll say, you're the first person who recognized what was going on. And the reason is that the social worker, funny you should mention it, said this to me the other day. She said, well, I could deal with those people. I said, could you? I said, I've made it a life work. Tell me why you think you would be effective. And she said, well, we had one full day of training on personality disorders. And I thought, well, there you go. There's the answer to that question. And, maybe there's no reason to have a whole lot more than that because you may not meet them, but the numbers of these people are growing in our society. The statistics are that we're rapidly developing more than we've ever had before. And we have to see the red flags. And in order to see red flags, you've got to take off your rose-colored glasses.
Yes, that is such a good point. And when I look back at things with my former husband, and I forgive him. When I talk about him, it's in no way to debase him. I can't disassociate myself from the experience that I had, and then hopefully some of those things will help people, but I'm not trying to talk bad about him to put him down. But even his baby book, from the time he was tiny, his mother would say things like, call him a little devil and a little monster. When you've been labeled that and had that spoken over you, and there were so many mama related issues. And at some point she had sent him to kind of a type of a boys' school for bad boys. And there at age 12, he was deflowered by a 21-year-old employee of the place. And of course, he was very proud of that. He just thought that was, he was attracted to this woman. Well, actually, that's pedophilia. 21-year-old adult women are not supposed to be having sex with 12-year-old boys,
Yeah, well, let me say something there, because
Please.
Only about 2% of the population, like 1.8 or something, is actually born with all this going on, and then the environment they're born into clinches the deal. So there are occasionally people that their mother would look at them and go, "What's up with you? Where did you come from? You're nothing like the way that we behave," right? And then they would be like doing everything they could to get help for the child. But you have to have the DNA markers, you have to have the brainwash of chemicals, and you have to have the environment to have this kind of thing perpetuated. And so, yeah, there are a few children. I used to work back in the day when they were called homes for emotionally disturbed children. I did research in those places. And yeah, they had horrific beginnings. But there were children. I remember one little boy, he was, when I met him, he was 9 years old, and he had been setting fire to cats since he was 2.
Wow.
Well, nobody in his family set fire to cats, so that's an example of what can happen. But the thing is that our environment teaches us so much, and we take in so much before our brain is developed. Our brain grows till we're 25.
Yes.
And so when we think we're so smart in our teenage years, we're only half baked. And that's a problem, because when our parietal lobes come in, then we have to learn to process our reality in a different way. We're not the center of the universe. We start seeing ourselves and having relationship to other things and interactions with other things. And then when our prefrontal lobes develop, we get rational linear thought, and we can see consequences much more clearly. But every time those brain changes happen, we have to practice with them because they're new. We're kind of clumsy with them. And so eventually, by the time we're 25, it's all worked out. But think what's happened to you till you're 25.
Yep.
And those things got kind of written in stone, maybe they did. Because when you turn 18, you're expected to go to college or get a job or do something. You become preoccupied with other things. And so you're behaving from that whole background that you have never examined. Now, a hijackal won't go and examine it anyway. But for the rest of us, let's all go and examine it and see if there's something that happened in there that makes us attracted to and attractive with hijackals, because we want to expunge that from our repertoire.
Yes, we do. I agree completely. Now, we've been talking about who they are, what they are, how they are, but our topic is freeing yourself from crazy making relationships. Let's move over to that. Let's give people an idea of where there's hope, what steps they can take. I remember going through a very difficult time with a family member. So that tells you that I had a lot of predisposition to being okay with this, which we've talked about. And I remember just saying, stop the merry-go-round. I want to get off. And I literally had to cut myself off from that person for about 10 years. And it wasn't that I didn't love the person. It wasn't that I didn't care about them, but I couldn't stand the crazy making.
Right.
And, there's been a lot of healing that's been able to happen. She now respects my boundaries, which she couldn't do before. But so what does a person do? What kind of steps can they take to free themselves from crazy?
Well, first of all, you have to do your own work.
Yes.
You have to. And I always tell people when they come and they say, should I leave? And I say, if there's no physical or sexual abuse, no. Because we need to get you empowered. We need to get you clear. We need to get you looking at your values, your vision for your life, all of your beliefs, and what your next best steps are. And because if you leave, you go running from a relationship
into another
and you haven't done your work, you'll be left sitting in some tiny apartment somewhere disempowered. That's no way to start a new life. So do it all before you leave if you can, and get some good help someone who can help you know, why was I attracted to this relationship? What things do I need to look at within my early life that may have predisposed me to find this situation repeating itself in my life? What do I really want? And then the next step is to get very, very clear about where your boundaries are, so that you know, this is okay with me, this is not okay with me. This can go this far, it can't go beyond that. I don't want any of this in my life. I'd like more of that. And so then once you're clear about your boundaries, then learn to express them, give voice to them without being wishy-washy. And you don't have to walk over anyone to express a boundary, because it's all a statement about you. I've written all these books, and in my book, Kaizen for Couples, I give all of this great information about how to be in the best relationship with yourself and somebody else. And so in there, you'll learn about my personal weather report. It's a communication tool that's very important, and it's important for setting boundaries, so that you can say, and you have to know and believe this, you can say, what works for me is this, and I'd prefer if this is the way it went. And that's all you have to be able to say. You don't get into you're not going to do that to me ever again. Because it's going to be this way for me. And I would like that agreement to be in place. And you say that once or twice. There's going to be slippage, as you said earlier. It's a new tool, so I didn't remember where to open the curtains. Well, there's going to be a little slippage. But you then, on the third time, you say, I think I've been very clear that I prefer this, and I need it to go this way, as it doesn't seem to be doing that. I choose to do this.
I like that.
You take it all on yourself. Like, I am an autonomous human being who is making decisions for my own best interest. I am not making judgments about you. I am simply doing this.
I think that's powerful. That's powerful. Well, everybody, we are going to take a super quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back. I want to ask you a quick question. How's your health? Do you or anyone that you know have health issues like type 2 diabetes, osteoarthritis, high cholesterol, or high blood pressure? Did you know that drinking Chanson alkaline ionized water from a Chanson water ionizer is like health insurance from your tap? While it affects everybody's bodies differently, it helps some people's bodies balance itself so well that some doctors have been able to reduce or remove their patients from medications. My favorite quote is from Dr. William Kelly of the College of Metabolic Medicine, author of The Cancer Cure. He says alkaline ionized water produced by a water ionizer has become the most important advancement in healthcare since Alexander Fleming's discovery of penicillin. So I invite you to visit chansonwater.com, say that you heard about water ionizers on Princess Power, and ask if that $200 discount is still available. All right, we've been talking to Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. We've been talking about freeing yourself from crazy-making relationships. She's given us a couple of tips, and I did not get down that wording, but it is so good. Do you want to go ahead and repeat a little bit of that before you give us our next tip?
Sure. What I was saying was, in my book, Kaizen for Couples, I give what I call the personal weather report. And I didn't say this earlier, but I'll say it now. I don't believe that we should go around using an old communication tool, which was called the iMessage. And an iMessage sounded like this: I feel this way when you do that.
I've been taught that.
That doesn't work.
Okay.
What works is you assuming that you have the right to take up space and draw breath, and therefore you have the right to say what's going on inside you. That's why I call it the personal weather report. So you stop and you say, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I needing? What am I wanting? And you give that voice. Never say the word you. Never talk about the other person. That's the true nature of being assertive. When you can say, this is me. On this subject, on this topic, that are my feelings, this is me. Has nothing to do with anybody else. I'm just declaring and asserting this is me. So when you set a boundary, then you can say, I feel more comfortable when things work this way. Can we be in agreement? And they say yes or no. Then it happens and they step over that boundary. So you say, I think I need to reiterate that I feel more comfortable when things happen this way, and I would like that to be the way we interact so that we could continue to do this. Then they overstep again, then the next time you add a consequence, because you have the right to say, I need it to be this way for me to feel safe, or I need to be respected, or whatever, and I am not feeling that way right now, so I am taking this action.
What kind of a consequence would you recommend? I mean, sure, it's different with different situations, but give us an example.
Well, let's take an extreme example. If I feel disrespected when I'm hit, hitting needs to stop. Okay, clear boundary. You repeat it again when they go to grab you. And you say, I will not be hit. Hitting is unacceptable. Next time they even look as though they're going in that direction, you say, I will not tolerate being hit. I will not tolerate being touched in an angry way. And therefore, I am ending the relationship if this does not stop immediately. Trick is that if you set a boundary, you must take action.
Yes. I see people all the time. parents and grandparents that they make threats, but they don't follow through when it comes to children. And I think that that's very detrimental.
It is.
You're training them that you don't mean it.
Well,
So,
you are, and there's a piece of that, Natalie. I raised my 3 kids by myself while getting a PhD in psychology and working full time. So I had to learn a few of these things.
Congratulations.
And you know what the best word I ever figured out was?
Tell me.
Non-negotiable.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
I would say, we're going to the store. There will be no treats. We don't have any money for treats, and there will be no treats. You can stand on your head and spit wooden nickels and scream for a week. There won't be any treats. It's non-negotiable.
You made it clear. I love that. Well, back to your example about the abuse. I will say that there were about 5 instances of physical abuse in my relationship, some even after we were separated. But the first one was 2 weeks after we got married. He picked me up, he threw me across the room, and from the floor, I said to him, and I was in complete shock. Nobody had ever treated me like that in my life. That wasn't something that came from my childhood. Didn't expect anything like that. Always believed that you could resolve conflict as adults talking. And from the floor, I remember saying, you need to leave. You cannot treat me like that. This is not okay. He had moved into my home. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm not leaving. What are you going to do about it? I said, well, then I have to call the police. Mm-hmm. And he says, you go right ahead. Mm-hmm. Well, I did. And I did not anticipate that they would arrest him. And they did.
Yay.
He blamed me for that. He did not take responsibility for that. He actually literally called me to come pick him up from the police department, which I didn't do. I thought, no, I'm not going to rescue you from what you've done. You need to have consequences. But he literally emotionally divorced me at that point. The marriage went on another 10 years, but it was never a real marriage, in my opinion. There were other examples of abuse. About 9 months later, we woke up. I woke up because he had turned the TV on very, very early on a Saturday morning. I wanted to sleep. I was tired. And you know how you kind of swat at somebody, kind of playfully hit them to get their attention or something? You're not physically hitting them. Okay. I had done that. And I said, go watch TV in the other room. And he literally hit me so hard, he almost knocked me out of the bed. I got up and I was pleading with him, please just go. I want to sleep. Go watch TV in the other room. He got out of bed. He threw me to the ground. He was choking me. He beat my head into the ground until I literally saw stars. I didn't know that that was possible. I thought, you'd see that in cartoons and stuff. I thought that was a joke. It's real, folks. If you haven't experienced it, it's real. I wound up with 11 cuts and bruises. But within 30 minutes, because I had called the police before, he was just sure I would do it again, which was very smart of him. And he moved out. And he stayed moved out for a period of time. And unfortunately, one day, about 4 months later, decided to move back in while I was at work. And didn't ask me, didn't get an agreement or permission or anything else. And that's
where did he get the keys to the new locks?
Well, I hadn't put in new locks. Actually, when he moved out, he hadn't bought groceries in 2 weeks. And I remember praying and asking God to give me $40. I wasn't working at that point and didn't have my businesses then. And he came back to get some of his things. And I went in the other room. I didn't want to see him, didn't want to talk to him, didn't want to interact with him. And when I went out there, he had left $40 on the kitchen table. And I'm always surprised sometimes when God uses the people that you least expect to meet a need. But my point of the $40 is I certainly didn't have money to buy new locks. But, didn't expect him coming back,
No, but that's the thing. When you're dealing with a hijackal, and your story really illustrates that, Natalie, you have to expect the unexpected. They're not going to do what you would do. They are not going to think as you would think. They don't have the expectations that you have. They don't treat people as you would treat them. It's really important. It's important to be able to ask yourself at any time, am I treating someone in a way, or speaking to someone in a way that would be acceptable for me to receive or hear?
Yes.
And that's the criteria. They don't ask that because it's all about me.com. It's going to be my way or the highway. It's going to be what I want, you know? And it's their fear. And like I said earlier, we can have compassion for these people being fearful and brittle and fragile and all of these things. But it's not our job, nor do we have the capacity, the ability to fix them, to
I
help
love
them.
that.
You don't. And so it's important to just say, all right, I cannot do anything about this. I can do something about me, but I can't do something about this.
Yes. Yes, I like that. So you've said that if it's not physical or sexual abuse, don't rush out and leave them, work on yourself. But are you ultimately going to leave them once you're kind of a healed person, or does it make room for some of these people? Because you've said that hijackals are different levels and stages. Do some of them adjust as a person, has done the work on themselves and is loving themselves and seeing themselves in a different place and more able to put some of those boundaries out there? Do you see some hijackal shift and become a different person and treat you with love and kindness?
Different, and they won't treat you with love and kindness because they don't have love to give, except for certain moments, that feels loving. It's not that, they're horrible, terrible people. And that 1.8%, yes, they are. But it's that they don't know how to do it to feel safe. They're on guard all the time. They're hypervigilant to have control. So they're not going to be able to accept that change. But yes, I tell people all the time, every case is different.
Yes.
I could talk about hijackals and many, many things about hijackals, but there's going to have to be a calibration. That's why I work with people all over the world. We have to calibrate what's going on for you, because what is happening in your relationship? What kind of person are you? What kind of person are they? What kind of backgrounds did you come from? Do you have children? How old are the children? Where are the finances? How have all this run? What are your cultural norms? What are the expectations of your faith? What are all these things that are impacting the relationship? Yes. Because for a person to do their own work and stay in the relationship, they can get very, very strong. And sometimes we can ameliorate a situation to the point where you can raise your children. And that's an important calibration, because remember this. If you leave a hijackal and they're not in jail, they are going to, unless they're completely deadbeat and have gone off with somebody else, but don't worry, they'll come around again because that person will them and you'll be on their supply list. But and unless that, it's absolutely not possible, they will come back and take you to court over and over and over. And it's not that they want the children, it's that they don't
want to use them.
To have them. They want to use them as pawns and messengers in the game. And I'll give you a really overt example. I was working in Canada with a woman and her new boyfriend. She'd been divorced for 3 years, and her new boyfriend was someone who knew about my work. So what she was experiencing was she'd left a hijackal, had 2 children. He kept taking her to court, wanting more time with the children, trying to make her out to be a bad mother. She was working full-time, knocking herself off. He kept taking more money. And then one day I opened the newspaper and found he went to where she worked and shot her between the eyes and shot himself. Now that's how much he cared about those children.
I really don't have words. It is heartbreaking to hear a story like that. And yet we read about things like that in the newspaper and we don't know the background.
Right.
And, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood. 5 people committed suicide in 1 year. And my grandfather, jumped over a back fence to put a man out that had set himself on fire. And the thing was, his children were going to be coming home from elementary school about an hour later. And had my grandfather not been there to intervene, that's what those children would have come home to.
Ugh.
And I almost dated a man. I didn't actually date him, but we talked for a little while. And over the period of time that we were talking, he had a young daughter with a woman who was an attorney. This was not an ignorant woman. She hung herself, and this is on a specific day while he and I were still in conversation. And one of her kids came home and found her hanging. Now, fortunately, his daughter that was younger with her was not the one that found her. But you wonder what people are thinking.
It doesn't really matter how well educated you are because we're not emotionally educated. I've had many, many clients who are successful entrepreneurs, men and women. And let me say this, there are as many male hijackals as there are female hijackals. It is not, we've been giving examples because we both happen to be women, so we're giving examples about men. But let's put this caveat out there. There are just as many hijackal women as hijackal men. And they're going to do these horrendous things with no thought for other people. And if you have been very well educated, you've become an attorney, you've become a social worker, you've become a medical doctor, whatever you've done, if you haven't done your emotional work, you're still where you were when you were tiny.
Such a good point. Wow.
Right? So, I worked with a couple where the wife was a medical doctor and the husband was an entrepreneur. And he didn't trust her with the baby. He didn't think that she was doing a good enough job or that she was careful enough or that she knew to call a plumber or whatever. And it wasn't until we worked together that I said, this has to stop. You think you are her parent. She doesn't need a parent. She holds lives in her hands every day. She's quite capable of making decisions.
Was he able to hear that?
He was, and I don't know what happened because, of course, they made one change and they didn't come back because that's typical of a hijackal. He could hear that he shouldn't parent his partner, and there's a reason for that because not only should you not parent your partner, but if you feel you have to parent your partner, then you don't feel like you have a partner, so both people are losing.
Oh, that's
so
such a good point.
Simple structure of looking at how we might be parenting our partners helps us to see that there's loss involved on both sides. And so maybe that's something that shifts what's going on. And I think in that case it did. I think he was probably raised in a hijackal home. It seemed that he had been in. And so he only knew certain ways of being. And so taking charge was important to him. And he didn't really know what partnership felt like because he hadn't had equality. There are three things I believe that a healthy relationship, any healthy relationship, business, love, whatever has. They must have equality, they must have reciprocity, and they must have mutuality. And if they don't have those three things, they're not going to be healthy.
Okay, I'm writing that down. All right. Reciprocity, I understand, even though I can't pronounce it well. Explain that real quick, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to need you to tell everybody how to reach out to you. But before we do that, go ahead and explain reciprocity.
Well, reciprocity means that I am as willing to help you with things as you are willing to help me with things. So it's not a scoreboard. It's not a tit for tat. None of that. It's just that I want to do things for you and you want to do things for me. And we do that. It's not one-sided. That's what reciprocity is.
And then how would mutuality tie into that? Give us a description.
Mutuality is that I want for you what you want for yourself and you want the same for me. So I'm willing to support you. I'm willing to help you. I'm willing to talk with you. I'm willing to help you figure things out. And you do the same for me. That's why we get to be really deeply in relationship and get richer and richer, emotionally intimate relationships is because we have mutuality. We are interested in each other. We want the best for each other. We want to help each other. We want to be there for each other. We don't feel it's a burden. We feel it's a wonderful investment in having a relationship of a lifetime, what I call a world-class relationship.
I love that. And I can picture it because I try to describe it with my new marriage. My husband and I have been married a little over a year now. And it's a lot like having died and gone to heaven. I consider our relationship very circular. It's like we try to outgive one another. And he doesn't particularly like cleaning up the kitchen, but if I've cooked, he jumps in and he's cleaning it up. I don't have to ask him. He just senses that, that's a good thing to do.
That's reciprocity.
And isn't it? It's beautiful. And if he can see that I'm busy, he'll go in and cook dinner. I don't need to ask him to do those things. He's looking out for me. I'm looking out for him. And because he does such a beautiful job of serving me, it comes from his nature. And I can't say that I have a real good servant heart, but I can see that that's his love language. So, I try to do things for him, and I have never had a relationship like this.
Well,
and
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm enjoying it so much. So I want people, to know that that's possible, and that you can heal, and you can become healthy, and you do deserve an excellent relationship, okay? But I want everybody to know how to reach out to you, Roberta, to get that free ebook, to look at your other books, to see about talking with you, because this is a powerful and important subject we've been talking about. So how can they get a hold of you?
Well, first and foremost, go to my website, forrelationshiphelp.com. forrelationshiphelp.com. You'll find everything there. And then I have a YouTube channel, which is called For Relationship Help. So I have about 150 videos there that you can watch. And then the free ebook, How to Spot a Hijackal, you can get that at forrelationshiphelp.com. You'll just see the books tab that's there. And then you can listen to my podcasts. I have 3 of them. The Relationship Help Show is the main one, which is my interviews with guests. And then I have one called Emotionally Savvy Tips for Relationships. So that's where I talk about ways that you can improve your relationship. And the third one is called Save Your Sanity, Help for Handling Hijackals. So very, very specific to dealing with difficult, toxic people.
Wow. Well, you are a very busy woman. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today. And everybody, I really want to thank you for taking your time to listen today, but I want to ask you to do us a favor. There are people out there that desperately need this information. So I'm going to ask you, please like, share, and comment. All of those things helps us in the search engines. It helps us reach people that need this information. So thank you for listening today, and thank you for joining us, Roberta.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Princess Power Hour with Natalie Thomas. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit princesspower.com or on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter at @PPPrincessPower. Until next time, work smarter, not harder. Have a question for your host of Princess Power Hour, Natalie Thomas? Contact us at www.princesspower.com or tweet us at @PPPrincessPower.